And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Enemy of My Enemy. We took some time off. We had some ghosts, some hosts. We had ghosts too, but we're not talking about those. We had hosts gone for a variety of reasons, and there's just no replacing Lou and Brian, but they are back. Gone for very wildly different reasons, but we'll just be happy that they are both back. Today, I've also got Sam Whiplinger, and we got Jacob, who's going to be on here in just a moment. Jacob Weinegrad. You may know him as Jacob Daniel because people know his name incorrectly more than they know his name correctly. So we are back. Obviously, it's been quite a break, and we're going to be back with a very hot topic. So hot, in fact, that this is going to be a two-part episode. Now, if you are watching live, you are going to get both parts live right now, and you are going to hear it back to back. However, if you're listening on the podcast for the sake of time, because listening to 2 hours of people bickering is just a little too much liberty for everybody. Libertarians usually cap out at about an hour's worth of bickering. We're going to break this up into two parts. So this first part here, we are actually going to give our uninterrupted feelings about the Mises Caucus takeover. For those who aren't in the political sphere, the Mises Caucus, I believe the only thing that they said didn't work out for them was getting Whitney, the chair, dismissed immediately, but even then that ended up happening. So we're talking a perfect 100% total slate victory for the Mises Caucus. They now have control of the Libertarian Party fully. And so have all the LNC positions staffed, passing resolutions, changing planks, doing all kinds of stuff. And we're going to give our full feelings about the Mises Caucus. And I keep doing this, saying we'll never do it again. But the thing is everybody wants this conversation. And I am nothing if not a host of the people. I do ask for everybody listening, because I'm seeing we do have a lot of viewers, that I just want everybody to please come at this with an open mind. Regardless of who you are coming in agreeing or disagreeing with. Look, nobody's neutral in the Mises Caucus, okay? We get it. You've taken your point of view, and you have very good reasons to take that point of view.
Yeah, what's an open mind? I mean, I'm in a cult.
Yeah, so this is I'm trying to speak to your people, Sam, without saying it. But yeah. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I don't care people. What you people, you whiteys, white male straight people.
Wait, Hody, too many syllables. Less syllables for the MC. Come on.
Okay. All right. Me do show. Me debate big. So we are all, I'm just asking everybody to come in with an open mind, and just whether it's me, and believe me, I want you to agree with me, that otherwise I wouldn't be having a debate, right? But regardless of who you agree with or disagree with, just give everybody a fair shot, right? I just want everybody to come in and just kind of understand some other perspectives. If I have any regret from my interactions, it's me condemning the entire Mises Caucus without really talking with some of them and understanding their walks of life. I now have. I still dislike the Mises Caucus, but it's something that I wish I had taken more time to understand their perspectives first. And so I think at least understanding the perspectives of the other side is going to help. We have way too many shows that are just oh, they must really just hate liberty, and that's why they are what they are. And that's true 0% of the time. It's a fun thing to say, but it's not really true. So here we go. I'm going to get us started here. I'm giving everybody about 10 to 12 minutes on the clock. And so again, there won't be any interruptions or heated debate, I guess I should say, for this first hour. In the second hour, we are going to have audience questions, concerns. I've got a few written down. Feel free to ask anything that you want to ask. And if it's a really good question and not a totally idiot one that makes you look obviously biased, then you may have it read on the show. As you can tell, I'm maybe somewhat frustrated about the quality of the questions I've had so far, but I'm open to getting a few more here. So I'm going to focus on just my face, and everybody else can go away. All right. So my thoughts on the Mises Caucus takeover. As everybody knows, I don't like their culture, and that's not something I have been quiet about. It's not something that I've made my entire personality. In fact, if I go back and I check my posts, I probably have less than 8 posts actually talking about like the Mises Caucus, but the times that I have talked about it is generally been unfavorable. For me, this is way more than about left wing, right wing. I find that the Mises Caucus in some cases tends to be left wing on some issues that are just fine. For me, this is all about the tribalism, the hero worship, and the cultishness that goes on from them. Now, I don't know if cult's the right word. I've done a few debates about this. In one, the person I debated with said they prefer that to think of themselves as tribal more than cultish, and some they prefer to think themselves as hero worshipers more than cultish. For me, the cult thing comes about because of what's called the fair game doctrine. Fair game doctrine was identified by L. Ron Hubbard and Scientologists. He actually decided to name it the fair game doctrine. But it has been around for a while. And it's something that he kind of identified that successful cults are able to do. And what it is they demonize somebody who's not part of the Borg for things they ordinarily wouldn't say to people that are inside of the Borg. So, for example, you may notice that there are trans people and gay people inside the Mises Caucus. Now, why is it that they don't get called, I can't say the slur because it's going on YouTube, but an F-word, homosexual F-word slur, and yet the people outside the Mises Caucus do? Why is it that Audrey had such a great support when she came out as trans inside the Mises Caucus and did get legitimately great support from people in there? And yet the same people supporting her that I saw on the posts go out of their way to talk to my friends that don't like the Mises Caucus and tell them that they're insane, that they have mental problems, they don't like them. And this is because of what's a fair game doctrine. If you're a critic of it, now it's all on the table, even if it's something that you don't necessarily believe. These kind of fluid beliefs represent themselves in a few different ways. You can look at Ryan Dawson, who blatantly posted a video and it had a Zyklon B thumbnail. And I believe it was called like "It's Them Every Time" or something. Now you can go, he changed it. You go in the Wayback Machine and see it. Everybody came out of the woodwork because he was, hanging with the MC folks to be like, no, this didn't happen. You people are crazy. Get a life. This isn't real. He decided one day to issue some criticisms on Dave Smith, another member of the Mises Caucus. And what happened? That's the moment that all of those accusations became true. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, wait, isn't this the guy with the Zyklon B video? Isn't that the liar who said he never did it? Isn't that the white supremacist? None of that was true until the criticism was levied at the Mises Caucus. And there are just moments, like this. And my goal here isn't to go over every sin of the Mises Caucus, because frankly, I find that if you're going to start naming sins, you need to have a very long list and you need to be prepared to look at both sides of the aisle. And it really doesn't end anywhere that you think it will, because when you start going through dirty laundry, you find more and more and more dirty laundry. Here's the thing. We have one person saying, hey, a leader, Angela, who I enjoy. I don't mind mentioning her name because I tend to like Angela. But even she will see something that's like talking about how like positive towards the GSM community and say, hey, I'm sorry, world, that you saw this post. I think she said the post got ratioed, even though it was the Libertarian Party's most like interacted with post ever. And then said, when I take over, like this messaging will be gone. And then when a certain Jeremy Kaufman from New Hampshire decides to say that Black people owe America, she says, what do I do when people say something I don't agree with? Well, I try to see where they're coming from and try to understand why they might say something like that. Now, here's the thing. I am fine with that reaction. Some people might just say, no, I outright condemn as soon as I see it. You know what? I like the idea of trying to walk a mile in their shoes and try to understand where bigotry comes from, why it pops up. Condemning stuff, and I'm going to go into this in a minute, really has not gotten us much of anywhere successful. But why was the energy different when it was being nice to the GSM community versus telling Black people that they owe America a debt because their slavery here was just so fortunate to them? They're not good at handling criticism. back when I was supporting, and you can go in my profile pictures and see I supported Joshua Smith for LNC chair. He was having a debate. He was intoxicated. He was not doing a good job. This was a warm up to the actual debate. And I said, hey, maybe he shouldn't drink because he doesn't do a good job when he drinks. He doesn't handle his alcohol very well, I don't feel. I was supporting his candidacy at the time. And what happened is I had Joshua Smith and Michael High say I was parroting hearsay, I think it was, and like just one of these trolls and whatever. And I mean, I still supported him all the way until things kind of bottomed out. But the thing is that I was like, man, you need to be able to tolerate some positive criticism. It's not that the other people don't drink. It's that you do a bad job when you're drunk. Right. And I mean, that was, again, some of the excuses was, hey, the other guys drank during their debates. And why shouldn't I drink? Well, because you do a bad job. And it was a legitimate criticism. And the problem is, if you can't handle legitimate criticism, you're probably not going to be the right person to run a political party, because I make mistakes constantly. And I get it. Nobody loves it. There's a lot of people who say they love it. They don't love it. Nobody loves to know that they've messed up. But we should at least fall in love with the process of saying, you know what? I understand what you're saying. I disagree, but I'm going to get better, whatever it may be. I have a thing with the Mises Caucus where I cannot reconcile with them. This is not a thing where I can hold their hands and be like, kumbaya, and let's just get over our differences. Because my entire philosophy is love first, love aggressively, right? Like let's put that love and let's make that strong. I want that to be our leading thing. I want that, and it's just not their tactic. So even if I agree with them on 90% of the issues, and I probably do, their tactic makes it so that there's just no way I'm going to be able to work with them. I left the Libertarian Party about 2 years ago now because I just can't do it, right? Like I couldn't deal with that. I could see they were taking over. They're making it a very hostile place for me. If I'm bringing people in, I don't want it to be a hostile place for them. And that's that. That being said, I'm going to end with some positivity here for the Mises Caucus. Gulp, much as I don't like to do it. The LP opened themselves up to this. They fired the first shots when we had people from the Mises crowd, even just institute before they were like a full caucus. They were very hostile to them. They would bring up the worst parts of their past, make sure everybody knew it. There was not a welcoming, hey, this part sucks, this part's great. We chose instead to try to capitalize on their worst parts and throw them back out, as opposed to taking their best parts and bring them in and incorporate that. When you do this, and this has been my issue for a long time, when you get into the habit of condemning people in the sense that you just cast them out, I'm fine with condemning bad behavior or even groups that you can't stand, but when you cast them out and hope they go away, that's not how toxicity works. When there's something toxic in the water, you can't just flip it off and hope that the water stops being toxic, right? You have to deal with it. And so instead of dealing with it, the hope was, hey, let's just drive these people out and they'll go away. Well, they didn't go away, and now you bow at their throne. They are now in charge because you attacked them. There were squandered opportunities under the old Libertarian Party. It was weak. It was embarrassing. They would go from saying, hey, we're not in charge of messaging, to suddenly say, hey, this is a Libertarian Party. We're just getting people elected. We're not in charge of messaging. But they would choose to message from time to time with the Libertarian Party account. And the message that they would do, they quoted the Church of Satan on Easter. They talked about silence being complicity, or like, there's that one that basically was equivalent
consent.
Of like, yeah, silence is consent. That's it. Silence is consent. Which, you've ever been sexually assaulted? No. Permission is consent, right? So this is some of the ineffective messaging. And then they say, well, we're really not messengers. Let's not pretend that they weren't corrupt and dishonest either. I've talked on this show a little bit about the dishonesty that I dealt with the LNC. I was hosting these debates. It was for the benefit of the LNC because getting our debates public was great. They wouldn't even share it. But you'd look at the stuff they would share, and it was either unpopular or really just kind of weak. flaccid, uninteresting, right? And people don't want uninteresting. And to the Libertarian Mises Party credit, they could put forward the furthest right-wing person they have in that caucus right now, and they are not going to find somebody that was further right than Bob Barr and Wayne Allen Root. I dare you to check either of those people on social media right now. That was who your moderate, pragmatic, weak-willed, boring people gave you, was Bob Barr and Wayne Allen Root. Remember that, because when you look at that, there is nobody in the Mises Caucus that is further right-wing than those people, right? When I heard about the treatment of Nick Sarwark towards the other LNC members, I called them personally or messaged them personally. As many as I could that were on social media. I didn't want to go above and beyond, start looking at people's numbers. And I said, hey, just let me know. Did Nick ever make you feel uncomfortable, or like, you know, like if you didn't vote a certain way that your future was in jeopardy with the party? And 3/4 of them said yes. That's a sick thing, right? A lot of people recognized that he needed to go, okay? As well as, and it didn't just end with him, even though people still make excuses for him and his behavior. Oh, it's politics. You got to play dirty. Well, don't be mad that the people who also play dirty do it better then, right? If you've been making excuses for dirty politics and here comes some more dirty politics, well, this is the bed that you made, and you're going to have to sleep in it. I want to end with this. I am genuinely rooting for the LPMC to succeed and blow my mind, and to just do something that I will say, wow, I didn't see that coming. You guys proved me wrong. I want to be wrong. I am genuinely rooting for them. I don't believe they will succeed. I have established the reasons why I don't think they will succeed. I think they are founding a revolution that is not led with love, but is led with an anger, an angst, a boomer-ish kind of upsetness with the world. And I don't believe that that is going to work. Now, they're talking about how they resonate with more Americans. And you know what? Given the old regime, I understand why they might resonate with more Americans. But will they resonate with enough to make a change? I hope that they blow my mind and they succeed. I've had a lot of people tell me, hey, this bigoted thing, we're just kind of riding it to try and get the people out of the way that are being like wokesters, that are the lefties that are kind of in my way, right? But now that they're in charge, maybe they will all of a sudden be like, hey, that old messaging, that was just to get the people we didn't like that were hampering us out of the way. Well, I was one of those people, so obviously I don't love it. But if that's the way you view it, fine. I hope that it works. I'm just telling you why I don't think that it will. And I hope that Sam and Jacob are about to talk about it here, and I hope that they're right. You know, I really do. That's my thoughts on the subject about the whole LPMC takeover. Thank you for giving me your time. I'm going to now tune things over to my buddy Brian, because he's got some things to say about this as well. And then we're going to tune things over to an LPMCer. So I know, I'm terrible for allowing it to happen. Brian, go ahead and give us your unadulterated, uncensored thoughts about the takeover.
You know, the thing is this, is that I was brought into Liberty coming back for really just before the Johnson Weld campaign. So I don't have the pedigree that a lot of people have here. So I'm coming at this, I want to say, from a mostly really newbie standpoint, looking at the history of the LP and understanding what's been happening. But the other thing is that I come to it from a sales perspective. And I know a lot of people roll their eyes at that idea. But my job is to find new customers and bring them into the fold. And if I'm doing that well, I'm not only making more money, but my company's more successful. If I'm doing it poorly, I'm pushing customers away and I'm making less money. But that really is the goal of the LP. In this case, it's looking at getting more voters who are customers, essentially, into the LP fold and to win elections. We like to talk about, promoting liberty being, a bit more ideologically pure. But in the end, the LP's here to win elections. And that's why we're all supposed to be here. Now, looking back, when we talk about Wayne Allen Root, we talk about everybody else, were those successful campaigns? And for the most part, yeah, I mean, you could put it as saying, is that, well, compared to a third party, yeah, they may have been. But when was the LP the most successful? And really, that comes into the time frame that I came in mostly into the party, which was the Johnson Weld campaign. Now we can talk about Bill Weld in a different podcast. But Johnson Weld was the most successful campaign for a third-party candidate since Ross Perot or John Anderson, going back several years. And we did it with way less money than what those guys had. But when you look at that success, you see the other side here that gets angry enough saying that they were not libertarian enough. What is Aleppo, bake the cake, things like that are trigger words to a lot of people inside the Libertarian Party. So we've always fought that, at least as far as I've been active in the party, saying, we need to be better, more ideological, etc. And I think we tried that in 2020, and things did not get better. Things got worse, especially in a time where we were dealing with two terrible choices. I mean, first of all, the election that we probably should have won, with Trump and with Hillary, the worst presidential candidate and the second worst presidential candidate going up against each other. And then in 2020, we had the third worst possible presidential candidate available. Those should have been layups for us. And even if we didn't win, we should have grown the party and grown our vote. But we saw it decline. And why did this happen? Well, we talked about the confusion inside the party. We talked about there's no strong candidate. And all of that leads to not enough money. And in elections, if you don't have the money, you're not going to reach voters, and it's just going to fall apart. And this is where the LP was the strongest. When it offered a sane alternative to Democrats and Republicans, it fails when it's ideologically focused. So my next point is going over here, looking at this, and I'm getting to what's going on with the Mises Caucus and the takeover. We want to look at growing this election base. We want to start getting more people interested in the Libertarian Party. And I'm going to bring up an analogy because it's an enemy of my enemy. I have to bring up a Monty Python skit because it's required by law. There's a scene where John Cleese goes into a cheese shop, and it was obsessed with being the finest cheese shop and the cleanest because it was completely uncontaminated with cheese. Now, it seems like, Brian, where are you going with this? But the idea here is this. What are we trying to be? The finest and cleanest possible party whatsoever, ideologically driven? Or are we trying to be the best and most popular? And that's a good question to ask with what's going on with this takeover. Who is our base? Our base currently is a bunch of libertarians, anarchists, occasional podcasters, and people who know what the Judean People's Front is. But our target market isn't more of that. Our target market is outside of the Libertarian Party. It's independents. It's disaffected Republicans, disaffected Democrats, or what we like to call normal people. And I know that's tough for libertarians to understand sometimes, but that's really a good base of people to go after. So looking at all this, all the conversation of the takeover that started last year, moved into this year, obviously, are we attracting those people? Are those people coming into the party and saying, wow, these are the people I want to elect? Well, unfortunately, the numbers don't reflect that. We're seeing membership numbers down significantly. We know that there's a lot of negative press on various items, the infighting within the LP, removing bigotry as part of the plank. It generates a lot of negative attention. And unfortunately, libertarians are really good at doing that. I mean, just as I mentioned, the Aleppo things and things like that, that unfortunately, we tend to be very good at creating our own negative press. And of course, the mainstream media just picks up on it and runs it because they want to appease their political overlords, et cetera, et cetera. Anyhow, I'm not really meaning overlords, but you know what I mean. So we aren't seeing a big draw of people. So, and I'll get to more of these numbers here in a second. So far, the takeover has not really had a big effect on bringing people in. We've seen the opposite. We've seen we're pushing away existing libertarians and we're confusing the people who are our new customers. And because of this poor understanding of how we come across in the media and on social media and everywhere else is really driving people away. But finally, I'm going to get to the one that every libertarian loves to talk about, and that's money. So let's take a look right now. How is the LP doing right now? Poorly would be probably generous. The LP is in really bad financial straits when you look at it overall. Since the takeover started, we have seen a drop in not only memberships, people not only not renewing, but also people canceling their memberships, and also a drop in donations. Now, I know the Mises Caucus talks about that they have over $200,000 in new business, lifetime pledges. But that number is not actual dollars yet. It may be at some point. It may come in, but those are pledge numbers. Those aren't actual dollars that come in. And so when you compare those lifetime pledges that came in of 154 new members compared to the revenue that we lost with losing those donations, those existing members and donations, it's not even close. So we saw 154 new lifetime members come in, and we saw about 1,100 existing members let their membership lapse in the last year. And overall, we have a total of almost 20% drop in membership numbers. Now, if you're running a business and you say, hey, this guy's coming in, he's going to come in and take over my business, and I trust him, and I think he's going to do great. Even if you spin it really well, if all of a sudden I say, this guy's coming in, and I lose 20% of my customer base right off the bat, there's going to be some questions there. That business is not going to be successful. So in conclusion on that piece of it, let's look at this. The LP is in really bad shape fiscally. And the takeover right now is nowhere near a net gain. If anything, the Mises Caucus has its work cut out for them because it's going to have to get that $200,000 in the coffers as soon as possible and probably double in order to not only run the LP, but then to be able to also be able to participate in elections. The other ones I want to throw in is when a business is taken over, you want to keep the people who know how things are working. And yes, you want to go through and get rid of, this person wasn't running it very well. We want to go ahead and get somebody in. But you don't want the smart people to leave. And you can make comments about people and what they do. But we're seeing lots of resignations in various committees. And as most people know, running a political campaign is a nightmare legally. We are opening the LP up to all sorts of havoc in not complying with state and federal standards. And when you look at that and the problems it's going to cause not only for the LP to exist, but in ballot access, we are in some dire straits on that part of it. So in conclusion, what problems have been solved with the takeover? The purpose is still fractured, or the purpose of the LP takeover was to be able to build and grow the existing base. Unfortunately, we're still seeing this as a very fractured mess of a base and the infighting that we've seen going on. Leadership, honestly, has seemed far more interested in righting prior wrongs than to growing the base. Your new customers, the ones that you are going to bring to the LP, are hearing fractured messaging, conflicting statements. I heard in one conversation that people wanted to reach out to disaffected Democrats, and in the same wording. And I'm glad we got rid of those woke LP members because they were just not real Libertarian Party members. That is a little confusing. Along with that process alienating existing members, because I want you guys to remember one thing from Sales 101. A happy customer might tell one or two people about their experience. A pissed off customer is going to tell at least 10 people about their experience. So, again, with that in mind, remember the Mises Caucus is counting on this large spike in lifetime membership, but those funds are still outstanding. They aren't been delivered yet to the coffers of the LP, and the losses that have happened because of the existing revenue and donations dropping far exceeds what that promised number is. So it's not too early to see. The LP is in really bad straits. I hope they are successful, just like Hody said. I want the LP to succeed. But right now, the current situation, which you can blame on previous leadership and things like that, right now, this is what the Mises Caucus inherited to a point, but it's also what they made. And without significant growth in capital, the LP is going to have to scale back operations. And if I recall, 2022 is an election year. And that, as I said before, without the money, you're not going to win elections.
Thanks so much. All right, let's flip to the sunny side of the LPMC takeover. We got Sam Whip of the Black Flag podcast, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I've been on it. It's a fantastic show. Y'all should stay tuned to it. I just figured I'd just throw him a bone there. Sam and pals. I got to talk barbecue on his show. It was delightful. So Sam,
it was mouth-watering, yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Hey, we are smoke ring masters, Sam. You and me. This
sounds sexist to me.
Oh,
excuse me?
I'm sorry. Not cutting you out either, Brian. Smoke ring master. Smoke ring master.
I was going to say, you should have seen the tri-tip I just did. I mean, I ate that thing cold, and it was delicious.
Oh, we'll have to get together and talk.
We'll cry over.
Yeah.
Just the tip, though.
My god.
Just the tip.
All right. Well, we were being too mature there, obviously. So, Sam, get us back on a professional track. Give us some bright side. You're part of the LPMC. Talk about the takeover and all your feelings there.
Oof, yeah, there was smoke coming out of my pen writing down everything while you guys were talking. First of all, I am not the spokesman for the Mises Caucus or anything like that. They've got professionals for that and people that are really great at that, and I'll just throw that out there. Maybe I'll just kind of go in reverse order a little bit. Well, no. Okay, so what brought me into the Mises Caucus was actually they were arguing about intellectual property. Someone told me in another group, so I just joined the group not knowing anything about it, and it was honestly the culture that brought me into it. I was a big fan of like the Words and Numbers Backstage Facebook group, and I still am. They're one of the nicest groups. They have an amazing culture. They just talk about things and keep things very kind. Their slogan is literally "Be nice to each other." So yeah, I got really into that, and then it was, like I said, it was the culture that brought me into the Mises Caucus because there was something different in that group than I'd seen in other groups. There was a lot more passion and a lot more just sort of fight in those people. It was a little less of just, oh, the state is so bad, blah, blah, blah theory. It was more like, how do we address this? How do we fight this? And stuff like that. And so that's really what got me motivated. So I think about things like the drug war. You know, you think of all the people who are imprisoned. We have the world's largest prison population. I think half of all prisoners are in the United States for victimless crimes, and that's just terrible. And you think of like healthcare, all the regulations and stuff like that. If you listen to Mary Stewart, whatever her name is,
Mary Ruwart.
Mary Ruwart, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And she does very good speeches on just like how much the government has influenced our healthcare. And you think of all the death and, the people dying of suicide and, diseases that could be cured and could be helped just because we're propping up, drug companies and all of this stuff. And I think of, I do a lot of driving for my sales job, and I look out at the cropland and stuff, and I think of like how much different it was, or how it could be if it wasn't so much subsidies for like corn and soybeans, where we're just, because the government is unnecessarily pumping money into our food system, we're just growing these crops that aren't of good value and we're throwing corn syrup and all of these things, and we're putting chemicals on everything and kind of ruining the soil. And you think of like all the wind and solar and all the different types of energy that aren't being properly utilized, and it's just a complete mess there. And then you think of like the wars. I mean, the absolute slaughtering of like millions of people, and the starvation and destitution, and then even just our vets, the people who have died. Then they come back, and we're lucky if they don't just kill themselves because of how terrible it is over there. And you're probably wondering why I'm bringing up every libertarian talking point real fast, but it's because that's kind of the focus of the Mises Caucus. I think we get into a lot of like he said, she said. We get into a lot of the drama of, so-and-so wrote 12 books and speaks nonstop everywhere, but he said this one thing that was very concerning. And it's like, oh, well, I don't really care. I'm kind of out here to address all those things. And, someone will accuse me of being either or. It's not either or. Like, I think we of all people understand that we have limited time and we have limited resources. What are we spending those things on? And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but the people who are very concerned with drama, very concerned with, the he said, she said stuff, those are the people that have the most drama. Those are the people that see it the most, and it sort of surrounds them in their lifestyle. And I think if we are to develop a culture, it should be a focused culture on what we're trying to accomplish and everything. And then I'll go back through. Like I said, I was just scribbling different notes. We'll see if I can pull this off. Let's see. Okay, the Ron Paul revolution took over a party with a chair who hated us. Let's see. We have the smartest. We talked about kicking smart people out and not keeping them around. That's just not true. We didn't kick anyone out, and we've been warm and inviting to anyone who's willing to work with us on those goals. If you look at the LNC, I don't know if you've watched like their clubhouse presentations or anything like that from the Mises Caucus. These are overwhelmingly brilliant people. I was very impressed by all of them. As far as finances, like we literally just took over the LNC. You cannot blame the people who are not in charge for running the party into the ground financially. You have to blame the people who are in charge. And as far as marketing, like it was our marketing that brought people into the Mises Caucus. Like the Mises Caucus didn't just come from nowhere. We marketed it. We said, hey, we're the Ron Paul Revolution. Come join us. Join this party. Let's take it over. And we outmarketed the Gary Johnson people. Or the more, I mean, the pragmatic caucus doesn't even exist anymore. Like, because they weren't pragmatic. We were. We knew that strong messaging, being, we say bold, but really what that means is just being honest and unashamed of what we're saying. And so we're the people who brought in and competed with in the marketplace of ideas. We beat them out because we know how to market. We know how to do all of that. And the last thing I'll touch on is, you think of like Dave Smith and, all these people. If there was someone, a libertarian, more popular than the libertarians in the Mises Caucus, we would immediately change our messaging style to mimic what they're doing. I mean, we're not doing anything terribly reinventing the wheel or doing anything terribly brilliant. We're just like, hey, these guys are out in front. People like Ron Paul. Let's do what they're doing. Let's stop doing what some nobody in the Libertarian Party is doing. Let's do what they're doing and actually market to people. Market to people in a way that actually resonates with them. So I guess I'll just end with that. We got a giant job on our hands. I liked what Dave Smith also said. He said, we're not, he said we're in boot camp. And he's like, wait, we're not even in boot camp. We're on the bus on the way to boot camp. And we're not even to the place where we're in battle yet. And I think when we took over the LNC, it's like for the first time, we can actually just kind of look outward a little bit more and just start addressing the state. And so overall, I'm very excited. And I think we have, 3 to 5 years to see if we can market libertarianism, or to see if libertarianism is truly marketable in large scale, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing your views. We are going to take a brief break before we get to our two hottest speakers, spicy hottest speakers. So stick around.
We are the most attractive ones here.
I was obviously talking purely about looks. And actually, that could be the case. Sam, Brian, and we're trying. We're lifting. But, yeah, I don't know. You got the glasses going. Anyway.
Broncos hat doesn't help. I'm sorry.
Oh, snap.
Are we going to talk barbecue and sports? Or are we going to talk Mises Caucus Takeover? Because I will get sidetracked so quick on this. All right, everybody, give me just a second. We're going to take just a second, just a little break here. Please hang tight so that I can get paid, and then you can go back to listening. Give me one moment. And welcome back from the break, everybody. As promised, we got our two, I won't say best, because, I mean, I spoke, and I'm pretty good. Brian is saying pretty good too. But probably the people with the two hottest opinions on this one for last. We're going to start with Lou. Lou, your feelings on the Mises Caucus Takeover uninterrupted.
Oh, I have all the fifis on this. There's so many things, and I don't want to repeat a lot of what you and Brian have said. However, I think for me, my biggest issue is that, anytime I would speak with somebody, from the Mises crowd, and be like, okay, well, tell me what it is that is so good about this. And, they would list off, well, our economic policies and our this and our that. And Sam really touched on a lot of those things, particularly Sam. I do have a lot of respect for you as far as specifically as it comes to your environmental activism. I mean, you live and breathe it. That's what you do for a living outside of politics. We're finding better ways, so I'm not going to say that, every piece of Mises is wrong. But the problem I have is that it's messaging and leadership is basically the two core problems. As much as I hear that from people when I ask about them, I don't see that. That's not something I just, oh, hey, there's a Mises thing and they're talking about environmental issues. That's great. Or anything like that. What I see constantly is hatred and bigotry and homophobia and anti-Semitic and racist commentary constantly from leadership. And if it's not specific to that, it is vile vitriol at people who dare criticize them and their dear leaders and their demagogues. And much like Hody, Lord forgive me, I was a huge Smith supporter. He was a friend. He stayed at our house. I hooked him up with my best friend and they dated for a while. We all know how that went. I've personally been a witness to the abuse. And I am so sick and tired of the white knighting for somebody who is a grifter and a liar and an abuser. And I've personally seen it. There is insurmountable mountains of evidence of proof of this. But he somehow manages, and God bless him, he's a very good speaker when he's on his game. Okay. But so was Hitler and a lot of terrible people. And I know everyone's like, oh, she made the Hitler. The point is, you can be a great speaker, and he's got that good baritone that draws you in, right? But the reality is, him and the vast majority of those in leadership who are supposed to be representing this group are absolutely hateful, nasty, nasty people. And, it's very clear to me, and I've seen it said even by leadership in the Mises Caucus, so I really don't, you can be like, well, that's not true, but I'll never believe it because I've seen it with my own eyes. Oh, God, ew, to that comment. Anyway, sorry. I hear that there are good things, but I don't actually see them in action. And for a few years now, oh, we're not trying to take over. We're not trying to take over. We've all literally read like the leaked memos from Heist about plotting a takeover and like literally how they were shoving delegates through like cattle to get it done. You know, you're not fooling anybody. Like, we're very aware of what the plan is and was, you know, and then you've got McCardle putting out memos to the new LNC about how there's going to be a change in messaging. And all I can think of is everything that Kaufman's ever said. And it's disturbing. I got to go back to my notes because I just get emotionally about it. And I know that a lot of people like, oh, it's an emotional response. You're goddamn right it is. I have put in nearly a decade and thousands upon thousands of hours and dollars into this party, into this movement, into candidates all across the country. I have sacrificed my time with my family. I have sacrificed time that I could have been actually making a living because I believed so strongly in what liberty in our lifetime looked like and that I could actually do something to help that. And seeing this is just, it's heartbreaking, right? So while there may be issues that you like, very rarely do I feel like they're ever at the forefront of any effort made by this caucus. And I use the word caucus very lightly because when you really dig into the legality of all of this, I'm pretty convinced, and Hody and Brian know that it's a pack. It's a pack. You cannot, when you follow the paper trail, separate the two. And when you have that intermixed with an officially recognized political party, you are begging for trouble, especially when you go back and look at and really fine-tooth comb through the finances of the Mises caucus for the last, I don't even know how many years. Numbers of false reports, or this wasn't done in the right way at the right time. You know, and a lot of times it's, oh, well, you know, it was their first time doing it. It's an easy mistake to make. I get that. Politics, especially like when it comes to the nitty gritty and the paperwork and the filing and the blah, 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 like it is difficult. Okay. That's why I have never, ever volunteered to do any sort of finance, anything for any campaign or candidate or anything, because I don't want to mess up. It's not my strong suit. And I respect those who do it when you're good at it and you're honest. But what is happening with this sort of intermixing of this caucus, PAC, and the party is going to kill the party. It will. It absolutely will. The FEC is going to have a field day with this. And I will be completely surprised if we actually manage to get a presidential candidate on the ballot in 2024. At this point, I don't think it's going to happen. And I'm not saying that the previous, you know, edition of the LNC was great, because it was a total shit show. Everything that happened on the previous LNC was just stupid, right? Because we elected a bunch of children. And apparently we reelected one of them. Oh, great. Good. So, and the next 2 years will be all about her. You guys have to know this, right? Yeah. So let's see. Let me go back to a couple things. Oh, Hody made a comment also about dealing with toxicity, right? And like ostracizing and all of that isn't, but I see it as cancer. And if you hit it with chemo and radiation and it doesn't look like it's moving, you cut it the fuck out. It's got to go because it will kill you. And it did. The LP is no longer the LP. It's the MP. Okay. It is the Mises party, period. And I don't want to be associated with that. I don't care what some website says in their little bullet points about these are all the happy things we believe. Because in my experience over the last decade, face to face working with these people, is what they have, like their outside appearance is not who they are. And, you know, Sam and I do respect that your real specific issues to you were like economic and victimless crimes and environment. I get that. But let me tell you, there are places out there that are doing the same or more that you don't have to constantly apologize for the hate that your leadership is spewing. They are not the only raft in the ocean. I just can't rationalize how I know people who are kind and good-hearted. And yes, I was referring to Harlos. Okay, Harlos was somebody who was a friend of mine. Like, we sent gifts to each other. And I don't know what happened over the last year, but I'm not going to get into that. I do feel like the more she got involved with Mises, the worse it got. And I don't even know her anymore. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. Again, the fish rots from the head. And with McCardle and Smith and all of them running the ship, they're going to run it aground. And I think it's really sad. I really, really do. Let's see. One of the things, and I'll get into this more later when we start our debate, because this is really a conversation I want to have with Sam specifically. But I think, and there are multiple instances where state parties have been harmed due to the collectivism of Mises, right? It's you focus on our goals or else at the expense of state parties and down ballot candidates. And I've watched it happen, and it cannot continue to happen. Yeah, you can say bold and honest messaging, but again, the only messaging that really gets seen is the shit messaging. And now we've literally handed over National's social media to these people. I am not excusing any of the terrible messaging that came from the previous LNC or prior to that even. But two wrongs don't make a right. And, you know, there is sort of this right-wing swing back against more left-leaning policies. I see, we all see it happening, right? Obviously with abortion and things like that. And so I can't say this is surprising. It's part of the reason I didn't go to Reno this year. And I'm so sick and tired of, well, you weren't at Reno. I don't need to fucking be at Reno because I've watched this coming for a decade. I have been at conventions and worked my ass off. I don't owe you anything. Okay. It doesn't matter. And it was all live. Like, I'm just not going to do it anymore. I have, over the last couple of years, watching this happening, you know, I've stepped back and I've dedicated more time to specific or local issues and my family and my career and what I want to do and what makes me happy in my lifetime. Because with the MC at the helm, we sure as shit ain't getting liberty in our lifetime, at least not by this boat. So
Cool. Lou, thank you for that. All right, let's end with he's here. He's Jacob Daniel. Jacob, your last name's Winograd. Now it's actually Jacob Daniel on the thing. Now I think I have it wrong. I thought you were Jacob Winograd.
My name is Biblical Anarchy. Okay, I mean, I don't have a name.
Did you actually change that? Did you file with the state?
Yeah.
Dude, I ain't no fucking statist, Brian. I ain't no statist. I don't need the state to tell me what my name is. Screw you, man.
All right, let's get your thoughts uninterrupted, and then I'm gonna wind down the show, and then I'm gonna wind back up the show. So again, if you're watching live, don't go anywhere. Submit any comments or questions. We'll take your ones that I feel are the most hinged. So please keep that in mind. Jacob, go ahead, buddy. Close us out.
Yeah, I tried taking notes and I gave up. I mean, there's just too much. I mean, going last after like 4 other people spoke is just not a good position to be in to try to address everything. So for those who don't know me, my name's Jacob. I've been on the show before. I'm a state organizer for the Mises Caucus in the state of Pennsylvania, and I've been like a loose member of the caucus since maybe 2019, but I didn't really get heavily involved until 2020. And I've had a little bit of a, I don't know, up and down roller coaster these past 2 years. I think people who honestly know me, I think Hody could vouch for me on this, know that I am not I'm not somebody who just follows marching orders. I'm very opinionated. I'm very argumentative, and I'm very stubborn to a fault. And when I joined the caucus, I ruffled some feathers because sometimes my opinions and the things I said didn't jive with what some in leadership, thought that I should be doing. And, we had some conversations, we had some battles. Some of them were pretty public. Some of them were in private. But, that I wanted to bring that up, how I got into it. What was largely because of, during 2020, the lockdowns were happening, and I couldn't stand by and watch the LP continue to fall flat on its face anymore. And see that some people who were running the party were actually running smokescreen for this growing authoritarianism. So I felt convicted. It was like, all right, I up until that point had been sort of a kind of anti-political anarchist who thought politics was a waste of time. But I always had friends in the Mises Caucus. Actually, I used to be a Bernie Sanders supporter and a registered Democrat. And it's always funny when people, some of the critics of mine or of the Mises Caucus will accuse me or the MAGA tards or whatever. And it's always funny to me because I'm just like, I've never even been registered Republican or voted Republican. My voting record is like Democrat, LP. And so, yeah, I voted for Bernie Sanders in the 2015, primary, and, reluctantly, kind of, closed my eyes and hit the button for Hillary Clinton in 2016. But it was actually people in the Mises Caucus who converted me to libertarianism. And so it was not surprising to me that I came in and in my sort of initial growing pains as a libertarian, and then, coming from that left-wing bias, there definitely are some in leadership and within the caucus, who have a right-wing bias, and we've clashed at times. Now as I've matured as a person, I've adopted some more right-wing views, and typically when I'm on here, I represent more of a right-wing perspective. But I try not to think of myself as ideologically right-wing. I view myself, if anything, I lead first and foremost as a Christian, and that's why my hashtag, my podcast, Biblical Anarchy, that's kind of what I try to start from. But if there's anything beyond that, I mean, I would say I'm pretty much at this point ideologically libertarian. I probably have some more right-leaning views on certain things. But what Hody said at the beginning, I actually agree with. I think in general, something that I find really weird about this conversation is that, and to be fair, it's like there's probably, to be fair, some of the blame, not all of it. I don't even think, and I'm probably biased, of course, but I don't even think it's 50-50, but some of the blame probably falls on us for how we market ourselves or how we represent ourselves or whatever. But people like to act like the Mises Caucus is just like this ideological right wing, swing back or something like that. And to me, it just doesn't match up with my experience. I mean, the Mises Caucus has a very diverse makeup. I mean, first of all, I guess there's sort of a tone that national sets, but then if you go state to state, they're all different. I mean, the Texas Mises Caucus compared to the Pennsylvania Mises Caucus compared to the New Hampshire Mises Caucus. Everyone's favorite here, right? I can't see all your faces, but I'm sure you're laughing or screaming at me right now. So every one of these state affiliates of the Mises Caucus are a little bit different, and the state organizers all have different arguments and stuff, and different perspectives and different even strategies based upon sort of what the makeup of their state is. And we have. I mean, we literally have everything. It's like I'm a hardcore Christian, and at the same time, I've met some militant atheists in the Mises Caucus. Actually, a couple times I've shared episodes of my podcast into the group and had people throw a fit and be like, this is a libertarian group, not a Christian group. We don't care what you think about your sky daddy and blah 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 blah, and angry atheist kind of crap. And so we have Christians, we have atheists, we have agnostics. As far as religious beliefs go, if we're talking about other sort of demographic diversity, we have people who probably have more of a right-wing conservative bend to their background, and we also have people like me and others who have come more from a left kind of background. We even have people who I would say kind of line up more with sort of a social progressive or SJW or quote unquote woke or whatever you want to call it, views as far as social issues go. But how do we all coexist under one banner, and what is that banner? And I feel like people don't understand that, and to me, I think part of my opinion is that I don't think a lot of people look closely enough, but maybe at the same time we could advertise it better. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But the Mises Caucus is a coalition, basically, right? And I think it's not a coalition of right libertarianism. I don't think it's a coalition. It's obviously not a coalition of left libertarianism. I think it's a coalition of thin libertarianism. It's basically saying that we want to strip down the platform to the things that we view are the most essential and the things that we view are the most agreed upon, as well as the things that probably are the most prevalent in our society that we could probably get popular support from non-libertarian voters on. And so that's sort of what drove the creation of the Mises Caucus Coalition and the platform that it runs on, and the sort of ideological vision and strategic vision it has for the Libertarian Party. Now, to those who are kind of on the left side of the aisle, they can sometimes perceive this as a right-wing pushback or right-wing swing back, because they'll see us going after certain left-wing messaging or planks or strategies within the LP sphere, which we do 100%. But then you have people on the right, people, including people who used to be part of the Mises Caucus and then left because we weren't right wing enough for them, who are now calling us a bunch of leftists and stuff because we're not going hard right enough. But we haven't changed. This has always been the vision of the caucus. It's to say, what, within the umbrella of libertarianism, there is like the 70 to 80% that we agree on, and then the 20 to 30% that like we obviously don't, and we haven't made any headway in however many decades libertarian philosophy has been prevalent, at least here in America, since the party's founding. We could even say. So when we do things that happened here, like the removal of the quote unquote bigotry not even the plank, just the removal of that line, the removal of the abortion plank, the addition of some clarifying, planks or amendments to the platform that were passed that further defined property rights and what aggression is, and self-ownership and those kind of things. Those things were those things were done to, in a way, sort of bring the party back to if anything, I think a more moderate, more center sort of like libertarianism that's not hard right or hard left. It's, to me, just thin libertarianism. Now, to some people, it's too thin, right? Because there are issues that they were super passionate about that they feel like we're not emphasizing, or that we're, downright trying to remove from at least from the forefront, if not entirely from the at least the Libertarian Party's strategic, and philosophical vision. And I get that, but I think that obviously, because I'm a member, I think there's merit to the reason that we did that. It's because, for one, certain issues are just so divisive that we're divided, amongst ourselves on them, and we're not going to really win pushing those issues out there. I think abortion is one that people are upset about being removed, but it's important to bring out that the plank was removed, not replaced with a pro-life one. The Libertarian Party is not a pro-life party. It's just no longer explicitly a pro-choice party. And I think this is fair because, I think the American population, for one, is really not, it's, I think it's closer to 50-50, but, this, depending on the studies you look at, it's kind of like, somewhat around 60-40, depending on how you define it as far as pro-choice, pro-life. But even then, a lot of the people who would define themselves as pro-choice, it's like, okay, well, you pro-choice up to, 20 weeks, 16 weeks, 12 weeks, 40 weeks. There's no uniform vision there. So there's no uniform vision on abortion within the American people, and certainly not within the libertarian movement. So the removal of that plank was, not to pick a side, but rather to say, like, hey, we don't have this figured out. So if you're a pro-choice libertarian and you're a pro-life libertarian, and you guys don't agree on that issue, but we can come together and work on things like ending the war on drugs, ending qualified immunity, criminal justice reform across the board, bringing our troops home, ending the Fed or auditing the Fed, or just, even though they're kind of pipe dream, goals, but trying to bring economic literacy to the American public. These are the things that I think, especially with what's going on in the world right now, that we need to focus on. So, that was sort of like my defense of the Mises Caucus in terms of the makeup of it, and in terms of, I guess like a very quick summary defense of why I think our strategy is the right way forward. I guess what I'll end on is, the style and the approach by which the Mises Caucus took over, and then what comes next, right? The Mises Caucus certainly is not a monolith, and I think if you watched over if you were at Reno or you watched the stream, I think that was evident, and I would go to the bat for that one if someone challenges me on that. One thing that we're also not monolithic on is like the whole takeover in the first place, because there were plenty within our ranks who that wasn't really something that they were in favor of. They didn't, they remember the history of the party. They remember the Portland massacre. They remember that other people have come in with takeover rhetoric before, and it's turned some people off. At the same time, the takeover rhetoric fired up people because they were, really impassioned about what they saw was a wasted opportunities in 2016 and 2020. I was chuckling when I was listening before I hopped on when Brian said that the 2016 election with Gary Johnson and Bill Weld was like the LP's most successful. And I just have to strongly disagree, because to me, it's like if all we're here is to try to, once in a while get a large vote turnout, that's meaningless. We need to be not just once in a while when the duopoly puts up the two worst candidates like in the history of our country, which is the real reason why we got a lot of votes that year. We need to do more than just be able to capitalize on those instances where people will vote one time for a libertarian candidate. We need to get retention. We need to grow our base. Like, some people think that the Mises Caucus, that we don't care about running elections, and we don't care about ballot access. But I don't think that's fair, because way I see it is, you can't put the cart before the horse. If we're going to win elections consistently, if we're going to be competitive consistently, we have to grow our numbers, and we're just nowhere close to being competitive. So we have to change our focus to growing our party and our movement, and then we can start to see increased funds and increased success at the ballot, on the ballot. So, I'll end on this. Was the takeover rhetoric the best path forward? It's said and done. I can't go back and change it. I, at times, defended it, at times didn't defend it as strongly, but we're here, we've taken over. All I can say is now the Mises Caucus is in charge, and the LP sinks or swims based upon what we do. And although there are some people who aren't totally sold on that, I appreciate the Hodies of the world, the people who say, like, you know what, I'm not 100% on board with everything you guys have done and said, but I hope you guys succeed. And that's what we're here to do. We're libertarians. We're not MAGA Trumpers. We're not, right-wing extremists. We're libertarians who had a different vision and a different, idea of the way the party should go. A lot of people resonated with that, and that's why we took over. It wasn't an illegitimate takeover. We got the votes. So the party's made up of those who show up, right? So that's where we're at, and I think that we have the right people to take the party forward and to succeed.
Awesome. Everybody, if you're listening to the podcast, you are about to hear us tune out. Thank you for listening this week. If you are watching live, stay tuned, because we have got the second half of this show where we will actually directly address each other and tell each other what stinky poopy heads we all are, because we are mature libertarians, and that's the best insults we got now. We're going back. So again, thank you everybody and for tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Have a good one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Enemy of My Enemy. This is part 2, if you didn't hear part 1, where we got to talk without any interruption at all about our feelings about the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus takeover. And so we kind of delivered what would be the equivalent of opening statements, but really I just wanted everybody to give their general overview, how they felt about the whole thing, because that's all these are feelings. What happened, and now we're going forward. They succeed. They fail, It's all on them. I think they like it that way. I'm glad that they like it that way, because I think as much as we're going to debate about in this episode, it's kind of going to prove itself right or wrong. Anyhow, I've got Lou, I've got Brian, I've got Sam, I got Jacob. And if you have any questions and you are watching live, please hit me up with the questions. Please keep them as civil as possible. Remember that everyone here is a friend of mine. It's okay to have very serious disagreements with them. I have very serious disagreements with them as well. But we get nowhere by saying, oh, my side won, my side lost. I'm not talking to that side. I'm not talking to that side. In my opinion, that's kind of how we got here to begin with, and why there is no cohesion at all. And so that's where we're at. So please let us know. I do have a great question here that I want to circle the table with. This was from Helen. This was the first question we got, and it was so good. I remembered it the entire time. And it was, how are you all going to keep from being sore winners / sore losers? I'll go ahead and start with the question, since I've had the most time to ponder this one. I think for me personally, I accept the loss and I move on. I think for me, it's what I wanted and what I was gifted at doing was not welcome, and it was not successful. And so I said, you know what? Instead of just saying, screw it, because I don't believe in it, I like what I do. I like the work that I do. And here's the other thing. I say it's not successful. I specifically mean that it wasn't successful in a libertarian sphere, in a libertarian political party sphere. Because what we did here in South Weber with going against the police and fighting to get the homeless folks clothed, get their tents back up, it made a big difference to them. That's not a failure, right? That's a different kind of success. Did I have success when I show up to the state conventions, when I try to get X number of votes? No, I didn't. I'm not good at it, flatly. I'll admit I'm not very good at the political sides of stuff. I've tried before. I thought that was the way to go, especially with my Republican history. And it turns out I had quite a few advantages when I was working as a Republican strategist that you don't quite get when you're a libertarian strategist, right? So I kind of walked in thinking, oh, I'm a hot shot. This is going to be great. And it didn't work out well at all. Now, here's the thing. I can whine and cry. And there's a lot of people who, I got to say, they've chosen to make their entire identity about being against the LPMC. And I just don't see that as an identity. You don't identify with stuff that you hate. You identify with stuff that you love, and I think that is how the success comes. It's okay to say something bad about it. In fact, I think that it makes your criticism all the more stinging when you have a full identity and you're like, oh, by the way, I don't like this too. Right? Versus I'm the guy who hates everything. And look who's on my show this week who I also hate. It's like, well, yeah, we know where you stand. We know you hate it. You hated it before the TV. It's like that guy who hates the movie before the movie's even on because they know they hate the director. Like, you could be right? But at least let it go, let it do its own thing. So for me personally, to stop being a sore loser, I wish them well. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to do what works. Now, at the Libertarian Party, I don't want to mislead anybody. If the Libertarian Party suddenly becomes a successful vehicle for my type of services, I would come back. But I kind of am having so much success outside of it that I don't want to come back. For me, it wasn't working before. It really wouldn't work now. And I don't think, and even when it's working ideally, that's really where I'm the most gifted at. Like, for me personally, what I am good at is successful at a local level. I have a tough time changing the culture of a whole nation. I do all right with changing the culture of my block, of my street, of like the cops in my neighborhood and getting that reformed and things like that. And that's something that to me, I have more success with. So for me, that is how I keep from being a sore loser. I don't hate them. It's just, that's where I'm at. Let's turn it over to Brian. How do you keep from being a sore loser / winner?
There's lots of ways. Number one, realize that you will lose. Not saying this in general, like the Mises Caucus is going to fail. Everyone that goes into any sort of agreement business, you can take that mental victory lap, but I work in networks. And whenever I hear of another network going down because of something stupid, I don't sit there and go, ha, 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 see, those guys are idiots. No, because it's going to happen to you. Guaranteed, you are going to lose something. Now, maybe overall, the Mises Caucus will do the things that I've heard promised on here, but you will lose. And when that happens, maybe 30 years ago, you could get away with it and be able to go, well, we said some terrible things, but, hey, kumbaya, let's all hug it out and stuff like that. The internet has a long memory. And there's a lot of podcasts, and there's a lot of AI, and there's a lot of quotes that can be dragged out. And I've seen them in the comments over here going nuts tonight of terrible things that have been said. So if you don't want to be on the receiving end of that when you do lose, because I got news for you, caucuses lose, groups lose, it happens. Don't be surprised if it's handed back to you in spades. So just reality.
Brian avoids being a sore loser by being grounded. It just says it happens. Sam, as one of the W's, as one of the winners here, how do you keep from being a poor winner?
I gotta turn this off. 1 second.
He avoids it by being rich.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to do that.
How do I avoid having a bad attitude as a winner? It is still on. Let me turn this down. Perfect.
Death metal,
No, it's the YouTube show, and so I don't want it echoing in here. But how to avoid being a sore winner. I mean, I guess it's just staying focused on the whole point of what we're doing. Like, we're not here to run in circles and be like, yeah, we won. We're here to, take on the state. I think that's kind of my simple take on that. What do you got, next person?
Oh, all right. Sam, quick and clean. Lou, how do you keep from being a sore loser?
Because I'm not a loser. This just isn't my team anymore. I've left. I've moved on.
Okay. But yeah, all right. Didn't lose because wasn't my guys. Okay. Jacob, how do you keep from being a poor winner?
Well, I think the only thing I know to do is just to try to keep doing what I've been doing, and if anything, try to double down on putting the work in, and not, I mean, I think some people, it's just inevitable, right? They get to the end zone, they're going to spike the touchdown, and they're going to do the celebratory touchdown dance and all that, and it is what it is. It's not my thing. I think the best thing to do is to try to, I mean, all I can do is try to lead by example. And like I said in my my opening thing, like, the LP sinks or swims now by us. I mean, we didn't just like win by a slim margin. Like we swept, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that more to put the pressure on us to say, you know what, like, we asked for this, we got it. Now we're either going to succeed, and I genuinely believe that if we succeed, that everyone here, including the people in the comment section, some of whom, aren't big fans of me, if we succeed in bringing more liberty to the country, I don't think anyone's going to be complaining. But if we fail, well, then we fail. And, then whatever setbacks happen, we have to own those. So, the way to not be a sore or sore loser or winner, whatever it is to, this wasn't, here's the thing, like, this wasn't, we're not at mission accomplished yet. Like, this is not what the Mises Caucus was created to do. It was not created to take over the LP. Mission accomplished, done. No, it was always to take over the LP because we want to use the LP, turn it into a force to take on the omnipotent cult of the state, to bring more liberty to our country, and hopefully that results in more liberty worldwide. So, to me, it's like, I don't even have that attitude of like, I mean, I'll be honest. There's a little bit of me that's like, yes, that we worked really hard to get to this point, and sort of like step one has been achieved, and that does feel good, but we got to keep our eyes on the prize. And so that's what my focus is on, and that's what I'm encouraging others to do, is to remember that this is not what it is about. We have a higher call, a greater mission, and we have to now take all that energy that we put into this project and put it onto the next project.
Brian, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I just have a question for both Sam and Jacob on this one. So let's talk about the planks that were removed. I'm not going to go into them in detail, but my question is this: if you're trying to reach out to grow the party, which you've said, both left and right wing, that they both exist in the MC, and that you have disagreements and things like that, if you are legitimately trying to grow the LP by broadening the tent and going to thin libertarianism, why even change those planks? Were those planks keeping people away? Because when you look at like abortion and saying that we are no longer a pro-choice party, we are now just open on the issue. Jacob, we had this discussion, about various polling that shows after that Supreme Court doc was leaked that, it's more 65-35 pro-choice, and we can debate on when in the 40 weeks, 20 weeks, 10 weeks, last night, whatever time frame. But isn't that the point of this party? And removing the plank of bigotry, which was the stated goal of the MC prior to the convention, stated goal, because it was too difficult to get people to agree on changing it. And only after our vice presidential candidate came up and said, let's change it then a little bit. I would prefer it stay that way, but let's change it. Why didn't you do that with both of those? Because I know what you said was originally, we'll never get the votes, yet you did. So why not have these discussions as opposed to just...
Sure. Those are fair questions. I'll take them one at a time in order, and then Sam can chime in if he wants. So on the on the abortion plank, I think this is actually the easiest to defend. One, because it's such a sensitive issue and people get so emotional about it. And I think on one hand, I think even people who are radically pro-choice would probably not necessarily like that. They might view that plank as being too lukewarm. Certainly pro-lifers were not a fan of that plank. And I don't think that plank, is even an adequate, fair description of what the libertarian position on abortion is, because guess what? Like, there is no consensus on what the libertarian position on abortion is. Like, we're, if we could get into the weeds debating over statistics and studies and how to, best base, the pulse of the country in terms of the percentages as far as where they are at in terms of their opinion. But within the libertarian movement and party, there is absolutely no consensus as far as I can, tell, as far as, what should our views be on abortion? Because for one, you have the divide between anarchists and minarchists, right? Well, if you're a minarchist who is pro-life, well, your position is going to be like, well, if the government only has a few legitimate functions and one of them is to protect our rights and to, stop murder, and abortion is murder, that kind of puts a pro-life minarchist in a tough position. Now, I'm more of a pro-life anarchist, so I have a different perspective on that. So until the libertarian movement kind of settles that issue, I think the LP is better off not having that plank in there, because then this allows individuals and individual state affiliates and individual candidates to then talk on the issue as they see fit, and everyone can come in and say,
wait. No, I'm next.
So sorry.
Cleansing breath, Lou. Cleansing breath.
Move on to the next plank. I have a response to this, so I'm going to let you finish because I'm fucking Kanye.
No, we can do it one plank at a time if that's better.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I want you to finish this one.
I agree.
Because
I should go first since I'm short-winded too.
This is some bullshit. Go ahead.
Just kidding.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, finish.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I had much more to say. So
I have a lot of questions about the bigotry thing. So let's keep it to the abortion.
I'll just do the abortion part.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so
that way Lou and Sam, you guys can get in here. Go ahead.
So yeah, we could have tried to get the 2/3 and discussed it and everything like that, but literally the other side was running out the clock, so we wouldn't have time. We prolonged the entire convention by 2 hours. They were literally taking down sound equipment around us, and we were using loudspeakers.
I do wonder how much that cost the party, by the way.
But yeah, I suppose. But yeah, we took out the plank because it was easier than leaving it in, and it is kind of, I know some people say it's not technically a pro-choice plank, but most of the people who read it, and for the longest time, it reads very much pro-choice. And so we took that out because we wanted a minarchist to be able to participate in our group. And if you say what the government, the way it was worded,
the government should be removed from the issue. Yeah.
Exactly. So we wanted to be able to welcome minarchists. And you say, well, if you look at the population, this many people are pro-choice, this many people are pro-life. Okay, but we're talking about libertarians. We're talking about liberty-minded people, and we wanted to reach a bigger tent of those people. Those are the people we're trying to reach. For the longest time, the Libertarian Party is trying to reach actual libertarians, people who value liberty, and we've been doing a bang-up job of it until just very, very recently.
Okay, as the only uterus-having person in the room, Christ almighty.
We win by default.
I deny your lived experience.
All right, Luke, go ahead.
Oh my God. Okay, so please explain to me, actually don't, because I already know verbatim what the plank said, and I'll keep it pretty short here for time's sake, but it ultimately was that we understand as a party that there are good faith arguments on all sides, but we do not believe that this personal medical issue should be something the government gets involved in.
Right, that's the pro-choice position.
You can't say it's good faith argument.
What exactly about that is
when people are
like
screaming murder?
Not pro-life. We are suggesting that you can be pro-life for yourself or want that for your family, your daughter, your friends, what have you. But here's where that plank came in and protected our candidates. It allowed them to have conversations with their communities and those who would be voting for them specifically to be able to say what they truly wanted, to represent while not being in conflict with the national party, right? And we all know this is as plain as it gets. The statistics are there. Banning abortion doesn't help anybody. It only causes harm to women. Okay? Period, the end. And by at least indicating keeping the government out of abortion, regardless of your be pro-life. I respect that. I am someone who I will die if I get pregnant again. Like I almost died the last time. The stroke almost killed me. Okay? It can't happen. So if God forbid, even if all of the measures that I've taken not to, something happens, the only way to save my life is to have a fucking abortion. And to take that plank out takes away anything from the party that backs my ability to say, I am pro-choice, as in I have the choice to make a very personal medical decision for myself. And I respect your choice to not get abortions and to even promote ideas on why you think abortions may not be great. And abortions are hard and terrible, painful things for those who have to have them. Okay? They really, really are. And that plank gave people like me something. Honestly, it was kind of life-saving, especially now when you look at what's coming from the Supreme Court. And you don't understand that. There was nothing in that plank that was specific pro-choice or pro-life. And the reality is pro-choice includes and encompasses pro-life. And the Mises Caucus especially loves to push back on wokeism and the buzzwords, right? But what they have made pro-choice to mean is pro-abortion, and that is not what pro-choice is. Okay? Pro-choice is you have the choice for yourself to get an abortion or not. And we as libertarians will defend your right from the government impeding on that. Instead, we have old white dudes in marble buildings deciding that my life is not worth living if I accidentally get pregnant with my husband with whom I am monogamous and trying very hard and doing everything I possibly can not to get pregnant.
So two things on
absolutely bullshit.
So two things on that. One, you can say, oh, well, pro-choice encompasses all these different things, and some people are misconstruing what pro-choice means. Let's say you're even right on those issues. Okay. That didn't really rebut any of the points that I think Sam and I brought to the table, which was that, like, that's your perspective. And let's even say again, it's the right, let's say for argument's sake, it's the right perspective. Not everyone agrees with you. It's a very divisive issue. And I don't think that having that plank in there made it easier for pro-life and pro-choice people to exist in this party and work together on the things that they do agree in.
Explain to me how it made it harder, especially for candidates.
Because first of all, this goes into if you're a minarchist or an anarchist, depends how you define government, and it depends on the implications of the statement of removing government out of it. For example,
Isn't that what
I
an
have
anarchist wants?
But again,
yeah, but we
Brian,
also want
Brian,
minarchists
again,
in the party.
Yes, the Libertarian Party is not the anarchist party. It's a coalition of libertarians who are minarchist and anarchist. Okay,
but
so
yeah,
now listen.
but
Actually,
minarchists want as little government as possible. Anarchists don't want government, so I don't
but
understand.
again, this gets into how
pulling
you
that
define
out.
government, because
To
I wouldn't
appease the
even say
minarchist side, why would
I
we
wouldn't
not keep
I
that
wouldn't even
so
say that.
candidates on a local level can say locally we're a conservative group of people.
They can still do that.
County,
They can do that right. They can do that even more freely right now, because now people won't go to the plank and go,
without-
This
"Oh,
sounds
but
like
your plank says
Baghdad
this."
Bob. What the
You're
hell?
not supporting that. You're not supporting the ability for two LP candidates, one in San Francisco and one
100%
in
disagree.
Norman, Oklahoma, to have
No,
completely
the
different
current status quo
views.
is it 100% more than the previous plank enables people
No.
to take different positions, because now
What-
there's no uniform position that people are going to be held up to as saying, oh, well, your
I wouldn't
platform says
expect it
this.
a uniform position. We just wanted the government out of our uteruses.
But
You,
again,
you know how
depending
many
on how
people
you
came up to
define-
me and told me that they would not support the Libertarian Party because they were pro-choice?
How many? How many?
At least 5.
We've got more than that in the comments.
I'm just
We got
saying,
more
I'm
than
just-
that in the
we've had-
comments who
we've had-
disagree
my-
with
my-
you.
We've
my
had
only-
hundreds who have
my
joined
only
the party
point
since that plank
is that it
removed
reads
because of
pro-choice.
the plank
Hundreds?
being- yes,
Really?
Hundreds.
I
Yes.
want to see some numbers. I want to see some numbers, because if you have hundreds, this should be easily reproducible. Go out onto the Mises Caucus Facebook page. Do you support removing this plank, and do you think it's a good thing? I would like to see those hundreds. I would then counter it with another group who will ask the exact same question. Let's compare numbers after
I
they're
would
done.
love to any day of the week.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would everyone be open
I
to
love
putting
Cody's
in a
face
plank
right
that
now.
was better worded?
Oh yeah, but that's what you should have done.
Yeah,
That's what
we were
we
saying
wanted to
on this.
do. It
The
was
whole
floated
damn
around.
time. No, hang on.
We
with a
couldn't.
plan and a
No, you could.
reworded.
You
They should have come. They made all these plans. Heist has a whole fucking memo about
yes.
What platform
Move.
planks they wanted to mess with. Why?
I talked to
is that
Angela
one not
McArdle
open?
and I said, we really need to change when the convention is. It's when we're trying to get ballot access. It's a terrible time. Why do we do
Yeah.
it this time? And she said, yes, absolutely. We won't have time this convention to do it.
But next one.
But that's
yeah.
next thing on the agenda. Like we didn't try to do everything. We just did what we could.
Hold on.
I
Hang on
have
here.
a
Hang on. Okay, hang on.
Go ahead.
Real quick.
Brian.
What is more important to the Libertarian Party overall? Number one, removing those planks, or number two, changing the schedule so that we can work on ballot access. Which
And I
one
really,
is
really-
more important to the party?
Am
I
I
want
going to have to
to-
defend ballot access?
I'm going.
Yes!
Okay, Sam, I'm going to put you in the hot seat on this one. Please explain
Yes.
to us what happened in Minnesota with their 5 statewide candidates and why they didn't get ballot access this year.
Well, a lot of people quit the party.
I
I don't know what you're asking exactly, like why it didn't happen, or
read something to you.
it was not like an intent. If you're asking if it was intentional, like we tried not to. I mean, we literally had one of the Mises Caucus people stay home from Reno just to make sure we were getting ballot access. I mean, in past years we've hired people and we've kind of got new leadership, and it was hard. People we elected, people we
I think
wanted to stick around, just quit.
That
That was part of it too.
I want to
We had a
kind
Why?
of pivot back to the focus on this.
I didn't kick him
Minnesota
out. We
ballot.
literally
I want-
elected him. We
Hang on,
voted for
no.
him.
Hang on. I want to pivot back for a minute here, okay? I'm going to channel my best Camille Vasquez here because, by God, when I grow up, I want to be her. I'm going to read this to you and tell me if I've got anything out of context here. National is going to affect more change and bring a larger movement through messaging than we will ever see with statewide candidates this year. A lot of you are very task oriented, and that is great. But please, please, please don't forget the broader vision of what we are doing. None of us signed up to lose again. We signed up for a bigger movement and a fucking revolution. Also, don't forget the absolutely massive amount of effort it took to get delegates to nationals. If you promised to go to nationals as a delegate, please keep your word. Each one of you represents countless hours of effort. Don't ignore that. If we don't win in Reno, we are fucking doomed. And I would like specifically to repeat a larger message or a larger movement through messaging than we ever will with statewide candidates this year.
I mean, where
Is that-
am I wrong? I mean, we fight every year. Like this was
But
our
as
convention.
as a
If
member
we
of
work
the
hard,
board in
maybe
Minnesota, is your local
we have a long
candidate-
shot chance of getting 5%.
Okay.
Okay, that's not
As a
gonna.
local board
We're
member
trying to
for
win
LPMN,
elections. What were you saying?
You're on the board for LPMN, correct?
Yes.
So do you not have an obligation then to ensure that your work is in their best interest? And can you name a year prior to this year that we have not managed to get statewide candidates on the ballot in Minnesota until you as a board member said, please, let's focus on Reno. Fuck our statewide candidates. Like, honest to God.
I mean, yeah.
Like, really, I would like you to reflect on that for a minute, because that's a problem.
Okay, I believe in ballot access. I think it's important, and I think we need to do all of that. I think having someone on the ballot in every state, like I didn't even know the marijuana party existed until I went to vote and saw they were on the ballot. I think it was super important, and I think we dropped the ball a little bit. I dropped the ball, and I take full ownership of that. But I do think Reno was way more important. Angela McCardle is going to do a lot for this party. I mean, I'm sorry.
What's it going to cost?
I don't think you are, but I hope to God that you are.
Hang on. What's it going to cost to get ballot access back in Minnesota? What's it going to cost now?
And is Mises
nothing. We just have to
cough it up?
run another candidate again. And actually,
Okay.
the presidential candidates give us. We're just going to have to petition again. This is what we've been doing for 50 years. We petition to get on the ballot. We get on the ballot, we lose, and then we start all over again. Like, this is kind of the Mises strategy of doing something a little bit bigger, a little bit more long
Not being on
term.
the ballot is not even being in the game.
We're not in the game right now. We're not in the game right now, Lou.
We almost won,
We got
and then we
1%
didn't.
of the vote last election. We're not even in the same room as the people playing the game right now.
But we're not even trying. At least doesn't seem like we are.
They
in
haven't been
Minnesota.
trying for fucking 10 plus years. That's for damn
Hang
sure.
on here.
All right,
hang on.
well,
How-
prove us wrong. I will sit here and wait to see it. And by that I mean I want to see candidates that are not Trump light.
I want to see our numbers grow. And yeah, I don't want Trump like candidates. Fuck
I
that.
mean,
Then hang on. Then why, if you want candidates to grow, then why
I
did
want our numbers to grow.
You want our numbers to grow? Okay. You want numbers to grow. Then how are you going to do that? By pushing messaging, which is going to be viewed negatively by not only a good.
Wrong.
Really? I'm sorry.
I was doing a
I have the
Trump impression,
numbers
sorry.
right here. I will send it to you. Why did we have an over 20% drop in libertarian membership over the past year and lose over
There's precedent
1,000
for that.
a thousand
precedent
during
for
the
that.
convention? Why did we lose that? Tell me.
There's
Are
precedent
they
for
all
drop-offs
woke?
in
Is that
membership.
what the quote was? They were all woke assholes like me, Mr. who's tagged as a right wing guy? Is that what it is? I'm the right wing woke asshole?
the wokest righty I know.
Jesus. I mean, this is the thing. You guys are losing the sales debate when we talk about selling liberty and things like that. You are pissing off your customer base. Your hardcore libertarians have been working
how
for
long
years.
have
We're
we
going
taken
over
after
for?
for?
We're going
Like-
after more. We're
Right.
going.
You've-
We're leaving a small niche market that hasn't been growing, and we're saying, you know what? We need to target different customer bases.
by going ahead and making national news for saying we no longer think bigotry is bad, by making national, at least in libertarian news, for adjusting the abortion plank. You guys are sucking on messaging for these people. Hardcore.
The Mises Caucus posted bigots' rights are human rights.
Yes. Hello.
So let me ask this, because I think that this is a fair question because this is the tide has turned here. Lou, why did they win then?
Why did Mises win?
Yes.
Well, okay, you can go back, and I don't have all the documents in front of me. There are communications between Heiss and a number of people about their recruitment strategies around Trump. There are recruitment strategies for.
Oh, is this the get the
delegations.
GOP to register libertarian for a day to change the numbers and then unregister? I saw those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a handful of things that were absolutely scammy. And there's also the fact that a lot of us who have worked really hard for years, some of us decades, are just fucking tired of trying to say, hey, world, we're not bigots and we support your right to choose and we support your rights to freedom and all of these things. And at some point, like, yes, I understand the idea of like, let's get in there and fight it, right? But there also comes a point where you have to just go, you know what? I'm not going to win this one and you can have it. And I don't want to be associated anymore, period. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Because I'm not going to pretend.
Are we going to move on to the bigotry plank now? Because
God, yes, please do.
Let me just
Brian,
one, yeah.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah,
I will get us into. I will introduce
one last piece about this. Okay. As coming in, removing that, doing all this stuff has reflected so negatively on the party as a whole, and all I've heard is arguments and complaints with regards to it's going to be better. It's going to be better. Okay. If it's going to be better, then I'm going to be amazed to see how you're going to do it when you've pissed off 20% of the libertarian membership that they've left the party. You've got 3 people here who are tired of the shit. And if you think that's going to grow across the spectrum here, I'm not quite sure how you're going to do that, but I wish you the best of luck.
I mean, I think that's the gamble, and I think they could be right. I mean, we've
I don't
doubted them
think
before, and they had the numbers, and so this kind of.
I was going to say about the numbers. I can tell you this much: the one thing I do want to go on record here, please.
Sure.
The previous leadership has sucked. The Libertarian Party leadership has continuously sucked. But we have great candidates and we have shitty leadership. And when I look at the numbers, I don't even, I understand why we get shitty leadership, because all the hell that people go through in this party, all the bullshit and all the Sarwark and Arvin and everything else. Yeah, that attracts those people. Okay. Because it's such a fucking junior high school mentality. And I look at it and I just laugh. I go, this is how you don't run a board meeting. So,
yeah.
That's why they won.
Proof is in the pudding. Go ahead, Sam. You're very quiet. Go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, I think it's a great question. How did we accomplish all this? How did we win? I mean, if we're just pissing people off and everyone's just quitting and we have terrible marketing ability, like, how did we win? I think we related to a lot of libertarians and we motivated a lot of libertarians.
I mean, losing ballot access in one state to make sure you're there.
It doesn't matter who. If you guys were doing great and everything, and the Mises Caucus came in, we wouldn't have won. I'm trying to think.
Struggling
to
maintain ballot access year after year and not growing the party or movement in any meaningful way. Sorry, that was not good enough. And now listen, in this reorganization of the party, have there been some missteps and have there been some short-term costs? Yes. But yeah, we're betting that we're going to make up for those short-term setbacks and losses in the long run, because we think that we're actually going to grow the party in a meaningful way over the next year or two. And again, like I said before, now if we're wrong, we got to eat crow. We got to step up to the ball and do what we said we're going to do.
Right. We're all on record on this podcast. We've all hedged our bets.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, I would definitely leave the Libertarian Party.
Right. And so this is
the Mises Caucus.
Well, and hopefully, and like that's the thing is like my worry here on a lot of this stuff is the overcorrection, because I see a lot of the people who literally joined the Mises Caucus to get rid of Nick Sarwark. Then they have Nick Sarwark on their show talking about how crappy the Mises, and I'm like, what happened to you? One of the things that I didn't quite have time to because my own opening statement ran long, but I was seeing a lot of these people suddenly like weaken out on like gun laws, taxes, even wars. And it's like, what's happened to you guys? Like, just because the Mises Caucus seems to represent like what they talk about Yemen, so all of a sudden we don't? Like, it's just like the whatever you're not is what we are, whatever we are not is what you are kind of thing. And my thing, Sam, is like, my hope is that someday this again, whether the Libertarian Party is an appropriate avenue for me or not is a different decision, but I don't think it's one that should be, oh, Sam leaves because his bets were wrong. My hope is that we take this conversation, we know what our bets are, and we learn why the other side was right or wrong. If the other side was wrong, I don't want you and Jacob to just like have to commit ritual suicide. I want you to both be like, oh, leave. Okay, no, now honestly, I understand, right?
And here's what, like,
what I mean when I say I would
leave. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It's just that
terrible.
Like, if the Libertarian Party isn't doing anything, like, I don't feel useful in it, and that if we're not somehow successful, if there's no change, then I guess if someone else has a great idea, I'd be down.
Who are they coming for? Who are they coming for?
I think they're coming for Sam. Sam, you pissed them off. The feds are on their way for that ballot access screw up.
All right, the police are here to usher in what will probably be our final conversation. And look, I'm going to summarize everybody's question about bigotry in one big fat bigotry thing, because honestly, that's been the overwhelming question. By 90% of the things when I say, what do you want me to talk about? It's something to do with the bigotry. Jacob, I will have you open on this one because in specific, you made a joke. I believe I actually got the joke and I could explain the joke, but a lot of people do not like that you said if the LP National tweets the N-word, that no way Jose will now join it. Now, I'm hoping that you understand the optics
of it. It's okay now because bigotry was removed.
Well,
right.
Like if I was tweeted, I wouldn't never tweet that from a state affiliate account or anything like that. I'm stating from my own personal account.
I was going to say Kaufman.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, jokes are jokes. And if you don't have a, dark sense of humor or irreverent sense of humor or whatever, like to each his own, whatever.
Well, can you explain the joke? Because I think some people genuinely don't know it was a joke. Like,
the joke was just that, so Jose, a fellow podcaster, friend of mine, and, he has a dark sense of humor too. And they like to, they don't actually say the N-word that often, but they'll joke around about the, can you say the N-word or not? And so just as a joke to my friend, because he's actually an agorist and he kind of thinks that the LP is like just a dumb idea in general. And so I was just like, but if we can get the LP National to tweet this out, then he'll have to join. It's just a joke with a friend. That is what it is.
It's not really a joke. It's a statement of fact. If the LP National were to say the N-word, the person you were talking to actually said they would join. I mean, just
playing along with the joke. I mean, I don't think he would ever join the LP anyway. He's a hardcore agorist. As far as the bigotry stuff. So I did not actually think. So I wasn't at Reno. My wife just had our fourth child, so that was way more important than going to Reno, was to stay home and kind of support her postpartum, because she's had 4 kids in 7 years, and that is rough. So I literally am like her bond servant right now, trying to wait on her hand and feet.
Give her a break, Jacob.
Yeah, right. She's giving me a break. Okay, let's set something straight here. Okay,
giving us folks from Utah like a nervous sweat, man.
But I actually didn't think, some people were talking about removing that, and I was like, there's not going to be enough time and enough support to do that. And I knew some people within the MC who were actually like, yeah, I don't know if we actually want to remove that. I think the reason that it passed was mainly because the compromise was made on the floor, that I think actually makes it better. Because the problem is, now listen, I know Spike said he was kind of like, he didn't want it to be removed, but his reason was, well, the optics kind of look bad. But Spike shares the criticism we have of that language, because he says, well, I wouldn't have wanted it put in the first place because it's kind of stupid, meaningless, and vague. Like, well, what is bigotry? And then if bigotry is bad, and even if it was well defined, it's like, well, we condemn it as irrational and repugnant. It's like, well, that doesn't really do anything, and that doesn't really tell me anything about like the libertarian answer to whatever bigotry is. What we took that line out, and what we substituted it with, which actually Angela McCardle and Spike Cohen were the ones who workshopped this, I think is brilliant, which is that we as libertarians, we uphold the right of all individuals, regardless of race, sex, religion, or any other attributes that pertain to their, individual identity or expression. So, I mean, I didn't quote that verbatim. That's my memory of it. I think that's pretty close. Which I think that is the actual libertarian position. And instead of this, and I know Brian and Lou and even Hody to a certain extent, you disagree with me. We've had this talk.
You might be surprised, sort of.
Okay. I think that the problem is that bigotry has become this overused word in our culture, and that people in the center and on the right. And I remember even being kind of annoyed by it when I still was a Democrat, because I would just be like, well, what is this, right? And we condemn it. And this is something I actually talked to Hody about on my podcast before, which is like, well, bigotry is irrational. Let's start there, right? To some extent, and actually Hody's talked about this before too, like sometimes prejudices and bigotry, like they are, I wouldn't say rational, but they're natural, right? Like some people sometimes will, because of bad experiences that they've had with a particular group of people, will develop a prejudice. I'm not saying that's good, but that
irrational. It's an experience, and reactions
Right.
are often irrational, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean,
by nature, we're not born bigoted. Does that
getting a little bit into the weeds there? I mean, and again, depends on what you mean by bigotry. I'm just kind of saying, I think that humans having prejudices is natural. What element of that is a social contaminant, and what element of that is somewhat some maybe biological evolutionary forces at play? I mean, smarter people than me would have to weigh in on that. I tend to think it's always a mixture of nature and nurture, but I certainly agree that a lot of it is learned, and that's what we have the most control over, and that's what we should, as libertarians, strongly try to do, is to foster better environments that push back against that kind of stuff. But yeah. So so I think that the solutions that were at play and likely to be made, I'm happy with where things ended up. I know some people are concerned over the optics. Some people will run away with this and go, oh, look, they removed the line that says we condemn bigotry. That must mean they're super pro bigotry. And it's like, well, again, that might happen for some people that do nothing more than read a headline from Reason Magazine, which pretty much only libertarians read anyway. But I think for people that look down into it and read more and see, oh, it was replaced with this language, and what's the libertarian platform, and look at the diversity that exists within it. Again, if we're a bunch of bigots, it's weird how much diversity we have. So I think that in the short term, will it gain a little bit of bad PR? I guess, and the internet lasts forever. But I personally think that the degree to which people think that this is like a giant catastrophe that's going to be like an albatross around our necks, like I really don't think it is.
I want to, if it's okay, I want to jump in here really quickly, and I want to agree with you. I don't have a problem with what was adopted as the reword. I don't have a problem with that. And in a way, I understand, bigotry as being this sort of overarching term. I don't want to say that, there's no real definition. Like, we all know what bigotry is. It's hating a person or treating a person differently, badly, whatever, because of XYZ trait. Right. And that could be race, it could be gender, it could be sex, it could be any kind of identity, anything, right? Disability, religion, whatever. Okay. So, like, I don't disagree, and I don't have a problem with the rewording. But what I do have a problem with is that Michael Heiss wanted it gone. And much of the Mises Caucus wanted it gone. Their initial response wasn't, hey, let's clarify this. That wasn't what they wanted.
Yeah.
You can't deny that.
Oh, no, I won't. And I didn't agree with that. I preferred to try to amend it from the start. Some people were concerned, like they didn't think we were going to have that 2/3 to actually amend it. And so the plan was actually to remove it this year and to just draft something new to implement in the following convention. But the way it worked out is better.
That's fine. But I've literally, like, of all of the things that Heiss and leadership has published around this topic, I've never heard that. You're the only person I've heard say that. Like,
well, Heiss, I know I've seen Heiss say this. He even said this on a couple podcasts in the past week. I don't know how much he said it in the.
Why didn't he say it at the before, Reno? Why didn't he say that?
He did too. He did too. I'm just saying the most recent ones are saying that that the plank, well,
recent.
saying that the plank over, well, because this is one line within a very lengthy plank, actually.
Oh yeah, no,
And that honestly, we all thought that the plank was good, minus that one line. And to be fair, I don't think that this would have come up if, a lot of people in the Mises Caucus, including me, get a little bit, irritated with that word when it's been used as a bludgeon against us for the past 2 years. I mean, I've had people, I'm going to get a little bit personal here.
Yeah,
I've had people.
woke. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a difference between people saying
how's there a difference? You don't get to say there's a difference when you're not the one.
Yeah, let me back it up. I'll back it up. I think that there is a difference between someone saying, "Oh, you're woke," and someone saying, "You're a Nazi," and I hope that the state comes and takes your children because anything raised by you will be subhuman. And then people calling CPS on friends of mine within the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania who were defending me. And by the way, that person wasn't even a member of the Mises Caucus.
Well,
and they had CPS
I don't know about that
on her.
situation. That's terrible.
But my point is, I think that the worst that you can say about someone calling you woke is that like they're making fun of you. When people are calling you a Nazi,
do you know how
there's a lot more negative connotations.
People have the cops or DCS or whatever called on them because they let their 6-year-old put on a dress because they were curious.
Yeah.
It happens far more.
Well, fuck, I guess I'm woke because my 6-year-old son has worn a dress before.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
Okay.
This is the thing. When you weaponize this bullshit, when you sit there and say they're woke, they're a Nazi, they're this, they're that. I only call people Nazis when they're walking around with the brown shirts and the little armbands and doing the little, goof stepping.
Well, that's you, Brian.
Like
but unfortunately, there's a lot of people who.
Wait a minute. Are you judging me by my last name here?
You got people calling the woke.
Well,
including me, which is the one I laugh at. I'm like, wait, I'm woke.
Our children to be, with this gay agenda.
No, listen. I will agree with you that
I want all my kids to be gay because then my house would be beautifully decorated. No, I'm kidding.
I'll grant you something, Lou. Okay, woke is a bit of a boogeyman. I have my issues with.
Oh my God!
Now, let me clarify this. I do have my issues with a lot of the woke point of view. I do have some issues with social progressivism that I think has gone too far. At the same time, I think that sometimes within our own circles, it tends to be something that people get a little bit too overreactionary towards. And as you all know, I've been on the receiving end of that a couple times. Okay. So again, this is not, I don't sit here and go, the Mises Caucus is perfect and has always done everything exactly the right way. And there's nothing we can learn from the past. And there's no room for the culture and the leadership and the direction to grow.
And we're not a monolith. So, I actually kind of agree with Jacob in a lot of that, of what he just said. I mean,
the wokeism from the party. So
right, that's what's been constant messaging. We're getting rid of the wokeism in the party. The quote, those liberals, those coast people, all these other things, which I fall into none of those. Yet I'm somehow associated with it because I thought, hey, the optics on this are really terrible.
To be fair,
the point
a
is
lot
that
of
we're
people wanted
appealing.
to remove. People wanted to remove that plank too because they've seen the Libertarian Party, national and affiliated people focus over the last 2 years on like issues that are specifically catered to appeal to people in that crowd, and talk about things like that. While there's been increasing wars, while there's been increasing totalitarianism here in our homes, businesses destroyed, people's lives ruined because of lockdowns and business shutdowns and vax mandates and all of this stuff. So I think that the sort of none of this stuff exists in a vacuum, I guess is what I want to say. There's a build up to this. There's a natural evolution to this. And when people see, well, what does the Libertarian Party national focus on? And then we see what they're focusing on. And when they're challenged on it, they reflexively, to the cows come home, just over and over again, cite that one line of that one plank over and over again in the context of of 3 to 4 years of calling the fastest growing and now largest faction within the movement a bunch of Nazi bigot Trump supporters, and that this all started when Nicholas Sarwark said, well, the Mises Institute isn't a fascist organization, but it's the favorite think tank of Nazis and fascists, which is what really started a lot of the rallying cry to go like, F this. We're no longer, now listen, I'll end on this. A lot of what started the push for the takeover was that people said, you know what, enough. We're being demonized by the party that bears our namesake, and enough is enough. It's been a joke. It's been a failure. It shits on us, and we're going to take it back, and we're going to change that. What we have to avoid is we need to now be gracious that we have that power to not do the same thing to the people who aren't part of our crowd. And that is definitely something that I am.
Hang on. This is one point I got to make here. That plank is older than all of you except for me. It's been on since 1974.
But it's been
1974.
Our first presidential candidate was a gay man.
It's been on since it's been removed before, but it's been there, so you can't blame it on wokeism. Oh, it's been there because we just want to serve the woke people. It's been there since 1974. It's been removed. It's been put back on.
Sam,
go ahead.
So, I was largely indifferent about the whole thing.
Then how did you vote?
I voted the other plank was way better. Everyone agrees on that. So obviously I voted for the new plank. But saying, bigotry is irrational and repugnant is kind of like saying we think we should have good ideas, not bad ideas. It's just kind of a nonsensical statement. So I like that fact that we reworded it and made it a lot better. The other thing is that's kind of like the progressive. That's kind of like the progressive Yeah, so it's kind of the progressive MO is just to say things that sound nice, and so I'm kind of glad we got rid of that.
1974.
I mean, progressivism is kind of old, and yeah.
So that woke statement is only 3 years younger than me. Okay, got it. Good job.
Yeah, I mean, progressivism didn't start yesterday. Like, this is, I don't know. Someone tell me the history, but it's been around for at least 100 years, right?
So here's
progressive
here's
era.
We got to start coming to a conclusion here.
Yeah.
And obviously we're not.
2 more hours. 2
2
more hours. 2 more hours.
Can I make a request?
Can we take over this podcast?
I'm hoping that our viewers will back me up here. But given that it's June and we're kind of on this topic, I would love for our next episode to be on Pride and the history of Pride.
That'd be cool.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're kind of putting me on the spot. It's my show. Viewers don't.
I know, that's why I did it.
No, I mean, I you know what? I'm totally all about that. In fact, this actually kind of brings into me one of the points that Chase had.
I love you, Chase.
That Chase had, because I think it's funny because he was talking about, like, Stonewall and how, like, of course the new regime isn't going to talk about it as much as he'd like, but the old regime didn't really talk about it either. Like, this is a group of voters that unfortunately has been isolated by everybody, right? Like, unless you're like some kind of weird Church of Satan person, you probably don't like LP National, like, very much, right? Recently. And so, like, that's just the way it is. Now, I do want to say this, like, a lot of this is going to come to fruition soon. A lot of this, I am actually, and I know I've said this in the chat, and say what you will about this, I'm glad it happened, because I'm sick of supposing what will be. Let it be. Let us see what will be. And if you're right, great. You don't need to constantly remind us every day, but it's okay. Like, then you will see that you were right. Now, obviously, I understand why you fought it. I'm not saying that you should have just given up and whatever. Like, if you have these convictions and you feel that we are on the, I think, like Vosh said, like, we're on the verge of a genocide here in America. And, like, if you think that, like, this is going to be a liability for liberty going forward, totally understand all that stuff. But you should at least, if you're going to take any silver lining from this, you're going to find out. Right? Like, so, and this is actually, for me, the bigotry one is a great one to end on, because I listened, by the way, good friend of mine, Dan Smoltz, he's a big LPMC dude too. He does all Spike's, like he does a lot of like the commercials and stuff that you see.
Have you ever
the
heard
ads
Adam
to-
Nutter's joke about Dan Smotes?
What about
Smots.
I always forget how to pronounce his last name, but he said like Dan Smots is what Tim Burton would draw if he was trying to draw a libertarian.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I like
Pretty
that.
good. Yeah, he runs it's called The System Is Down on YouTube. If you want to check him out, that's cool. But like, so he had a lot of the LPMC folks after this, and they were talking about this plank in particular. And they said before, all you could do was condemn it and just say it was bad. So if somebody hangs a whites only sign outside their door, that before all we could do is say, I condemn that. That's irrational and repugnant. It's bad. And their problem was we already know it's bad. We want to be able to do something about it. Now, I am very curious as to what the LPMC is going to do about it, because that may even go further left than what I am prepared to do, which is condemn it and hope that a culture takes care of it. But I wouldn't stop it at all. Right? Like I would say, you know what? I'm not going to use physical force, but I find what you're doing sickening and raise a culture that my kids don't shop there, my friends don't shop there until you have, kind of stopped, let go of your bad attitude. And of course, like I said, do it with love. I'm not trying to cast them out, but I am saying, hey, I'm not going to visit your petty shop while you're discriminating against my friends. That for me, that's what it is. On the podcast, of which we're talking all the heavy hitters. I believe one of them couldn't make it, but we're talking Heiss, both Smiths, Spike Cohen, obviously. They said they got sick of it just being something that they just said verbally, we condemn it. They want to be able to do something about it. Put up or shut up time. Do something about it. And we're going to be able to find that out real quickly, because bigotry is a thing here in the United States. You can argue about how prominent it is, but now we're going to get the MC being able to step in and say, no, now that we see it, we're sick of just saying we condemn this as irrational and repugnant. We're going to do something about it. And I think that's a fantastic standard that you have set for yourselves, that the leadership has set for themselves with this new plank. And if that's what they mean by the new plank, hats off to you, right? If that's what you intend to do by this, like I said, it's probably a little more interventionist than what I would do. But if that's what you mean by it, then hey, hit it, go at it. Like I am excited for what you all intend to do to live up to that. Of course, my suspicion is that perhaps we might go back to ignoring these things or downplaying them, because I have seen some of the people on the podcast, that's usually how they handle it. But if they're saying, no, this is a new standard we're setting for themselves, I've had to set standards for myself that I fall short of before. I'm glad. I encourage them to do so. And I hope that they do it. Now, you also, and I think that this is probably I know I said that was the good note to close on. The best note to close on here, even better one, is this doesn't get fixed if we don't police ourselves. Nobody is going to listen to Nick Sarwark say that the Libertarian Party, Mises party sucks anymore. They don't, right? Like no Mises caucus member is going to listen to.
I do that all the time. Mises caucus
is going to listen.
Mises cock. No.
The meat cocks. Nobody is going to listen to, no member of the Mises caucus is going to listen to Nick Sarwark and say, oh, okay, you were right all along. All right, you're right. It was good. And nobody in my camp is going to hear the Mises caucus and just be like, you wokest a-holes, and be like, you're right. I was a wokest a-hole the whole time. What you can do is when you see somebody, one of your friends, calling one of your other friends a Nazi, and that friend is not a Nazi, or they call one of your other friends a bigot, but they're not a bigot, then you can stand up for them, because that's the only way that this gets changed. Okay? No, everybody's pointing fingers at the other side. That's never going to be unity, because that's always going to be divisive. I don't want to hear from that guy who already hates me going into the conversation that I did something wrong. What I want to hear is the person who loves me, who's looking out for me, who cares about me, say, hey, man, you need to stop that. You need to leave that alone. You need to stop picking on them. So that's a challenge that I have from everybody going out on this podcast, is that I want everybody to say, you know what? If I see that happening, I'm not going to look the other way. I'm not going to say that's okay. You know, oh, they called them a bigot, but I get what they mean. They called them a Nazi, but I get what they mean. You know what? These are very serious things. I can understand why people get offended by calling somebody a bigot. It's one of the worst things you can be. I can understand why you get offended by getting called a Nazi, because it's one of the worst things that you can be. And so we need to reserve those moments for times when they make sense. I'm not saying you never use the word, but I'm saying you say, hey, back off, dude, right? If you can't stand up to your friends aren't going to stand up for you, right? Or these other people that you're pretending to cross the aisle for, be nice to, aren't going to stand up with you, okay? So what I'm saying is that you guys, if you want a real change and you want the next time to be any different, because if the MC, like, look, I'm predicting the MC to fail. You've got other people predicting the MC to succeed, whatever. At some point, we're going to come to this juncture again. And instead of them or us, we need to be able to say it's them and us. And here's what we're going to do together to actually achieve liberty. And if we just keep the finger pointing, if we keep the condemnation going, if we keep the hate going, if we keep saying here and here and here, and these are the people that we need to cast out, and this is the behavior that we need to condemn, and here's that wording that I hate. If you are defined by what you hate, you will never have a definition. You will not fit in any box, because you're just going to go all over the map, just being anti whatever your enemies are, and allow your enemy to define and control you that way. Some of the people who are anti-Mises Caucus, I swear, were the best recruiters for the Mises Caucus. You could not have done better. Nick Sarwark or Jackie Perry, you could not have done better than driving people. You did not do better than Dave Smith as far as driving people towards the LPMC. Mm-hmm. You did not. Okay, and you need to realize that right now. If you're friends with these folks, I'm not saying you have to disown them. I'm not saying you have to chastise them. And in fact, I won't even ask. Do not treat them badly. However, encourage them to change and encourage yourself to change, right? So like, this is really important. What we saw when bigotry got applied to people that it didn't fit, they went overboard, according to some, and just took it out, right? We're not using it anymore. Do you think it's going to be any different if we decide to add a plank that say we find Nazism irrational in a republic, bigotry, wokeism irrational, whatever you add, it's just going to be the same thing. We're going to keep getting the same results. All right, guys, I want to go around the circle and everybody give some closing thoughts. LPMC takeover. Let's try to keep it focused on the future. What's your future going to be? What do you hope for? What are you wanting to see? What are you looking forward to? Give me the bright stuff. Brian, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, my soul is a dark morass of hell. So no, I don't know if there's
he needs apples.
I'm gonna fling a couple. Now, really, honestly, what the one good I can see coming out of this is those people that are pissed off and worried that things are going to go sideways step up and support the candidates. I can think of Larry Sharp. I can think of Spike. I can think of all these other candidates that are going to need your help, and we got to step up and do that as a team. I think that if we aren't doing that and we become a party that's far more worried about appealing to certain voters and things like that to try to expand that base, we've completely failed.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. Sam, let's have your closing thoughts.
I was just listening today to Joe Rogan interviewing Lex Friedman, and they talked about Dave Smith and his presidential run, and I'm in the Mises Caucus, everything, and I didn't even know he mentioned that. It's gotten to the point where it's pretty common for Tim Pool, Dave Smith, or some of these to like bring up either Dave Smith, and now they were talking about Yemen and stuff like that, and I just think, for the first time, like, we have the biggest mic in the world, and we can do something with it. And I hope we can capitalize on that. I hope the ideas of liberty are marketable, and I hope there's skateboarders behind me. But I just hope to God that we can do that, and that we can help people, and that we can change the world. I mean, that's why I'm in this. we get down into all these different petty things, and it's just like, I'm just here because I'm tired of watching people suffer. I'm tired of, knowing that I live in a country that's just bombing the crap out of other countries, and that people are, suffering like in, like medical pain, and they can't take the stuff they need to numb it, and just all these terrible things that I think could be eliminated, and we could live in a much better, freer world if we adopted libertarianism. It's just this very basic philosophy that makes sense economically and socially in every possible way. And so, I don't know. I'm really excited to see if it's what we can do now that we have the biggest mics in the world. I'll just throw in one other thing. I'm not technically on the board in Minnesota. I'm the affiliate chair for the city in Albert Lee. So I do get a vote, but I'm not, like, I wasn't elected by the entire body or anything like that.
Fair enough.
Just throwing that out there.
I appreciate the clarification.
All right, Lou, your closing thoughts.
I'm tired. My opinion on the overall Mises crowd hasn't changed. And again, a lot of that is personal direct experience with the Mises Caucus when I worked with them and supported them and their candidates. And, and then it was, well, that's okay. I'm just going to work for the party. I'm going to work for this or that. And I've always been a proponent of like, stay and fight, but I'm also a proponent of self-preservation, and I'm tired. And there's nothing wrong or nothing to be ashamed of for saying, you know what, I'm going to put my hands up. You can have it. And as much as I would like to be as charitable as Hody and like I hope you succeed, like in what though? That's my concern. I don't even think that, the Mises crowd, caucus, institute, PAC, group, supporters, whatever you want to call it, their goal isn't even the same as mine for the most part. So they're not, I guess if they fail miserably in their eyes, it might be some kind of success. But I don't wish failure on anybody. But this isn't the team that I want to play for anymore, and that's okay.
Fair enough. Lou, just before I turn it over to Jacob, are you still working for Larry Sharp? Doing that thing?
I have contributed with graphics, but that is the vast limitation of what I will do, and that is mostly simply because, like, on a personal level, I love Larry. That's family to me, and I don't care what anybody says. That's my other dad. Sure. But I also built the original Larry Sharp branding years ago. So, any updates made to that, like, that offer comes to me first.
Right. I just asked because I know he's on the MC advisory board. I was just
we had discussions about that. He knows I'm not.
Okay.
But I also know why he's there and what his goals are. And he knows what my concerns are.
Larry's a great guy.
We're very blunt with each other.
Sure. Fair enough. Jacob, your closing thoughts.
So I condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant. And I mean that. It is. But I think maybe some of the people are concerned that, like, we're going to invite a bunch of bigots into the party. Sometimes I hear that a lot. I saw some of the comments about that. There are actually a lot of bigots in society still. And that kind of exists on a spectrum, right? Like, it's not like there's a, 100%, this person's a bigot, and then a 0%, and that encapsulates the entire population, right? Like, no, it's kind of a, varying degrees. And although I condemn bigotry, I don't find it useful to condemn people who hold bigoted views or who are bigots. And in a lot of ways, bigotry is antithetical to libertarianism. But what do we do about that? Do we just sit there and shout at them? And this appeals to just broadly what I think the Mises Caucus and what I think the Libertarian Party needs to do. we have to stop like wagging our finger at people. We have to stop just kind of like, we're the best and you guys suck, and just do better. Just we have to come up with solutions for the problems that everyday Americans are facing, and we need to connect to them with messaging that is honest, that's principled, and that that gets people to listen to us. And that means like if we're trying to grow the movement, like we're a small, we're a small movement, we're a minority. We have to find ways to appeal to a lot of people who aren't libertarians, which means like there's that battle between trying to find a way to tailor your message to appeal to people, but not losing your principles. And I think that that's what we're trying to do. Is we're not trying to bring people in here and say, put a rubber stamp of approval on them to say like you're just good the way you are, but you gotta you gotta work on people slowly. And I think the best thing about what we're trying to do is actually our culture, is trying to create a culture around these ideas, around ending the Fed, around ending the wars, around ending the genocide in Yemen, around saying no more people going to prison for just having a plant in their pocket. You know what I mean? Criminal justice reform for all the people who are serving 10 or 20 years for a crime they didn't commit, but they couldn't afford to get competent legal defense to keep them out of it, for the systemic problems in our country. A lot of these things and a lot of the economic stuff we focus on, these are issues that people care about, but they're going to come in and they're not going to have, they're not going to be perfect libertarians yet. And really, none of us are perfect libertarians. We're all still growing. We're all still learning, and yeah. and so that is what, that's what I see as somebody who's in the MC. And it's not perfect because nothing is. And we have to continue to grow ourselves as we continue to try to bring people in and help them grow and go on this journey together. And I'm grateful for people who are in the MC who are friends of mine, but I'm grateful for people who are not in the MC as well. And if you want to work with me or work with us, we're 100% willing to work with you. 100%. This is, someone in the comments was saying that my message was, we took over, so now F off. It's like, no, I'm saying we're in charge now. I'm just stating a fact. I'm not like trying to gloat, but whether we succeed or not is on us. If this isn't the team for you anymore, that's fine. I'm not going to force you to stay. But if you want to stay and work with us, even if you have reservations, I encourage you, let's expand our communications. Let's continue reaching across the aisle. Let's continue good faith conversations like the ones that we had here. And let's, we're not going to solve every problem, and we're not going to come to 100% agreement. But if we can try to do our best to lay aside some of the side disagreements that we have, to focus on the things that we do share in common, and to work together towards growing the movement and getting libertarians into office, that's what I want to see this party do. And that's why I continue to work to do that.
Thanks, man. Thanks, everybody, so much, especially my hosts. I'll start with them. Lou, Brian, Sam, Jacob. You guys are awesome. This is obviously 2.5 hours out of your evening, and I know that is not for nothing, because we're all family folk. And so I really do appreciate you being willing to give the time. With Lou and Brian back, we are in some serious business, y'all. So I hope we can get some more of these. We had a lot happen while we're gone. Everything from... goodness, Lou, you may hate yourself, because I was thinking we got to talk Roe v. Wade, but I guess we got to talk Pride next week.
Look, we could do either, honest. And if we're down to like a single hour. No,
you're good. Yeah, if we're talking a single hour, obviously we got more stuff to talk about it. So I just wanted to say we're back. If you're an audience member and has been, hey, I got a lot of encouragement. I know while we were off the air for a little bit there to come on back. Thank you so much. I know this is something that people want. Thanks for my hosts, obviously, because it's not possible for me to have a podcast that talks about different perspectives unless I have the different perspectives here with me. So thank you so much for being those different perspectives. Everybody who's listening, thank you so much. If you tuned in this long with an open mind and heart, I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. my kind of people. Honestly, the audience that listens to this show is my kind of people. I very infrequently find myself needing to boot people as much as I do even on my personal accounts, because the people who want to hear the opposing viewpoints, they just tend to mesh with me, and I'm just really grateful for it. So I'm not going to linger any longer, because I just wanted to say we're back. I'm excited. Thank you for tuning in. Everybody take care of yourselves. Love yourselves, love each other, love your friends, and we will talk to you next week.
Be gay, do crime.